50, 60 years ago, there used to be something called a Padta system in Birla Group, right? And this is where daily profit and loss was being done and was being sent even through postcards to head office, so to say. And it was very fascinating that they were making some assumptions, but doing it on a daily basis, daily P&L account was something that we were doing almost about 50, 60 years. But of course, there were a whole lot of assumptions that could go wrong, horribly go wrong. Today, with the kind of technology support that we have, this real time is truly something very, very.
Numbers tell a story, but advanced analytics reveal the hidden narrative. Today, I welcome you all to another enlightening session of the CFO Story Mastermind Podcast. Let's talk beyond numbers and deep dive in the strategic insights through advanced financial analytics. As businesses increasingly rely on data driven decision making, CFOs are leveraging advanced analytics to uncover deeper insights and enhance strategic planning. So, before we dive into critical aspects of financial analytics, I would like to welcome our moderator, Mr. Jogendra Singh, President Finance with Hero Enterprises Limited. Along with him, we have an esteemed panel of experts to guide us through this exceptional discussion. Mr. Sambasivan ji, CFO with Tata Plate Limited. We have Ms. Mili Chowdhary, Executive Vice President of Finance with Plantix Agritech India Private Limited. And lastly, we have Mr. Siddhartha Mehra, CFO at CHRO with Zolo. Thank you all for joining us today. Let's begin with this compelling session. Over to you, Jogendra.
Thank you, Shreya, and hello, everyone. Welcome to the session Beyond Numbers, Strategic Insights through Advanced Analytics. In today's financial landscape, relying on raw data is no longer enough. We are bombarded with spreadsheets, charts, reports, a sea of numbers that can be overwhelming. But what if we told you that this data holds the key to unlocking a deeper understanding, a clearer vision for the future? That's why data is the new oil. Every company has big data in its future, and every company will eventually be in the data business. There's a power in the hidden stories that lie beyond numbers. A recent McKinsey survey states that companies that leverage advanced analytics outperform their peers by staggering 20% in profitability. This isn't just about crunching numbers. It's about extracting the story these numbers tell. You have to write the right narrative. Take through, walk through, and then run through. We have seen the shift from BAU to DAU, as we say, business as usual to disruption as usual. Or we say disrupt or be disrupted. Peter Drucker said, the best way to predict future is to create it. Advanced analytics allows us to do just that. By harnessing the power of machine learning, artificial intelligence, and sophisticated statistical techniques, and the technology that advantage that we have today, we can uncover hidden patterns, predict trends, and mitigate risks. So from hindsight to foresight, that's the journey. And this journey can create the journey from tragedy to strategy. So imagine a company that through advanced analytics identifies a previously unseen correlation between customer demographics and product preferences. This empowers them to personalize marketing campaigns, leading to a significant increase in sales. So the idea is, even moving from best in class to best in context. Today, that is something that these numbers with right kind of analysis can provide. On the other hand, consider a financial institution that use these techniques to detect fraudulent transactions with much greater accuracy. This translates to better protection for its customers, and a more secure financial system. Even in a corporate world, we see that day in and day out. The impact truly goes beyond financial numbers or beyond financial gains. Advanced analytics can actually optimize operations, streamline processes, and improve resource allocation. It can actually help us understand customer behavior at a more granular level, leading to more targeted product development and enhanced customer satisfaction. CX is the key today. So this session, we would delve into exciting world of advanced financial analytics. We'll explore cutting-edge tools and techniques, showcase real-world applications, and discuss how to leverage this power to gain a strategic edge. I am very fortunate to have a very strong panel, with me who have been introduced. So I would straight away start with my questions from the panel. And the first question, Sambasivan, comes to you. How are the organizations currently leveraging advanced financial analytics to inform strategic decision making? Can you give some examples also, please?
Yeah. So thank you, Jogendra, and honored to be part of this panel. So I will straight away come to the topic of data analytics as to how in Tata Play we have really benefited from data analytics. So we believe we are a very highly data-driven organization. So much so, we do not have PPTs in our monthly review. For example, the monthly review which is done by the CEO, MD and CEO, is a series of Tableau charts and a series of Excel sheets and those kind of things. And these Tableau are like live, meaning you can keep doing some kind of mix and match while the meeting is happening. You can see that it's like a live database, right? So that's what we are now getting used to, right? So I think many companies have moved to this live kind of analytics, meaning if I want to know what has happened yesterday or what has happened last week, last month, last year, last 5 years, so everything is just a click of a button, right? And particularly it comes in handy when you are reviewing sales numbers and customer numbers, which is a very big what you can say KPI for us. When you are getting new customer numbers, we want to know which geography is doing well, where cable is doing well, where DTH is doing well, or where some other FTA is doing well. So all those things, provided you have collected all the information which we have on a real-time basis, so analysis becomes very easy and the action becomes very swift. So for example, we realize that within a week's time, if something has been launched in some remote part of the country, some product has been launched because of which my sales has been impacted, I will know within the day or within even hours, so to say, any pin code. So that kind of swiftness, this data analytics comes later, but data collation comes first. Data collection and collation comes first. So we worked a lot on this process relating to collecting the data, collating the data, and putting it in one single system. And the next level is analysis. And then comes insights, then comes beyond numbers and all those things. First, we need to have a proper mechanism of collecting data so that they are robust. So what we call as a data maturity curve. So which there are quite a few examples where we saved a lot of money in terms of cost. Looking at warehousing cost, we looked at some data analytics and saved some warehousing cost by looking at full truckload and how we can optimize that. We have done a few crores we have saved. There are n number of examples within the company on cost as well as revenue, where we have saved multiple crores of rupees using data analytics. It is like a part of the game kind of thing, right? So anything my MD says, okay, show me the numbers or show me the data. So we don't go by gut feeling, so to say, oh, aisa bhi ho sakta hai, or this could be possible. No, the numbers will tell the story, na? And there is also saying that if you torture the numbers long enough, they will tell the story you want to hear.
Sambasivan, I think that was truly wonderful, and you touch upon a lot of I'm truly very happy to listen. No PPT, kind of discussions, which is a dream, for us. We try and use a lot of dashboards during our daily meetings, even though in board meetings, etc., we still have to use
Yeah,
some.
board meetings, yes. Board meetings, we don't do these dashboards. But
Yes,
our monthly review with Harith and the leadership team, meaning the MD and the leadership team, that's almost a 5 6 hour session. There we have these dashboards where because he has to get into nitty gritties, what is happening to each location, each region, and all those things. There, PowerPoint doesn't work.
it doesn't work.
It
Absolutely.
doesn't work.
PowerPoint actually, does not tell the full story.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
it's truly wonderful. And, your expression of torturing the data long enough was something very, very good with the kind of volume, variety, and velocity of the data that we have, in our businesses today. I think that torture would truly, give some wonderful results. So coming to you, Mili, what are the key challenges in integrating advanced analytics into strategic decision-making process? And how can these challenges be overcome?
Thanks, Jogendra, and thanks for having me in this panel. So, when you talk about the analytics using the some tools and systems, so we are talking about processing the historical data. And when we talk about decision making, it's more a forward-looking process. So, what we are saying is we are, processing the large amount of historical data and trying to, analyze and come to a conclusion for our future purposes. So that itself poses a challenge because we are using historical data and then using it for the future decision making. Now we know the environment and or the the business is quite volatile. Something which has happened, even last year may not happen today. And if I relate to the agritech industry that I am, let's say example last year in the month of June it was quite normal rains for India. So we had a good season of selling seeds and all the agri inputs. But now this year we all know that for the month of June the rains got delayed. So as a result, our selling of seeds or the sowing season was delayed for the farmers. As a result, for us, selling the seeds and all also got delayed. Now, if I just use the historical data based on that, if I, come and analyze what I should be selling, then it may not be proper. So what we have to do is once we do we get some kind of patterns or things from the analyzing the past historical data, we need to adjust to the present situation or the, external factors which might get impacted. Sometimes also there are changes in the business, like what we were doing last year, we may not want to do. So we need to adjust that for that. So that is one of the key challenges for me. Then again, the second challenge is on the data limitation. Now, for us, when we are talking, we want to get insights into a customer base. So we have a large customer base. We want to see what is their buying pattern, what is the capacity of buying. Sometimes we may not have, that external data available. So there is a limitation of getting the data that we want to use to analyze. Then comes the third on the data quality. Now, there are various sources. There is all the financial records is obviously the internal source from our accounting system or ERP that we get the data. But then we also rely on a lot of external data, maybe it of our competitors, of our customer and everything. But that's where we need to we have a issue that what is the quality of the data? It may be not and sometimes we also build assumptions in that. So that is one of the challenges we need to be aware of. And then what happens is sometimes we use a lot of reports or the dashboards or an analysis. Let's say for example I want to look at my cash conversion cycle. So what I need to look at is I need to look at my inventory turnover analysis. I need to look at my creators reports or analysis. I need to also look at the status of my customers receivables because we also give credit to our customers. So I have to look at various reports, combine, and then come at a conclusion of that. So these are some of the challenges that we face in our industry. Now, how do we overcome? Is obviously once we get some kind of a pattern or analysis, we then adjust for these recent upcomings and things like that. And then obviously it is based on the management how they look at the data and then try to make some decision out of it. So yeah, ultimately it's how the management perceive, look at data, and then make a decision.
Siddhartha, can you provide an example where advanced financial analytics led to a significant improvement in financial performance in your experience?
Yeah, sure. Thank you, Jogendra. I mean, I'll probably take the liberty of sharing more than one over the lifetime. Let me start with once in one of our organizations we implemented a CRM, Salesforce, and the entire objective of implementing that Salesforce was to bring real-time visibility across the organization of how we were performing on our sales target, right? And this was in financial services, Jogendra. So the idea was, how do we take money and convert it back into units, right? Because trying to have this communication in the form of money terms, saying how many assets are under management and so on, it's not something you can explain anybody, right? So we thought, let's convert it into assets that we leased out, assets that we lent out, right? Which is easy for an operator to understand, easy for an underwriting guy to understand, and so forth. By implementing that program, we actually that year achieved 150% of our operating targets, just because by that we were able to bring a real-time visibility. In another example, we implemented Siebel as in one of the organizations. Our objective was that we wanted to drive profitability, not just growth at any cost, but profitable growth, which means it has to deliver a certain ROE, a certain ROI from a business perspective. So within the CRM, we embedded the calculators for a sales guy to understand, if you do this deal, not only what does it mean for the organization, but what it means for him, for his sales commission, for his incentive. Therefore, he can take the right decisions that are required to be taken, right? Seems like a very simple thing. Obviously, to achieve, you need to get data from so many different sources on a real-time basis to achieve that. That year, we were able to significantly improve our return on assets, right? I'll give you another example on distribution finance, right? In distribution finance, as a financier, right, we connected our systems with the OEM, and we connected our systems with the distributors of the OEM, so that we had a real-time visibility into how much goods have been shipped, how much goods have been sold by the distributor, and so forth. Now that allowed for the working capital of both organizations to be managed in a most efficient fashion, especially for the distributor, right? Because distributors are more like mom and pop shops. Cash is very important to them. They got to have a continuous cycle. So suddenly from being a vendor, you become a strategic partner, right? And you certainly are valued a lot more. Therefore, the conversation moves away from a price to a conversation on value, right? And that account, our margins were, north of 40%, just because we were adding value, right? Closer home, during Jogendra, the COVID times in my current organization, when demand was so unpredictable, when everybody was taking, a flight back home for safety, it is very hard to predict demand, right? But you have to rely upon your sales funnel from a lead to a conversion to understand what is the probability of revenue generation. Now, why is that important? Is because there's a cost that you have linked to the landlord. Now, if you can go back and have a more proactive conversation with the landlord, right, and say, look, I can't pay you 100 this month, I can only pay you 50. Here is the real-time data that is in front of you, right? I am not trying to cheat you. I am not trying to make more money. I am being absolutely transparent, right? That builds trust, right? When you build trust, and this is one thing I have seen over the career, even at the time of global financial crisis and now in the time of COVID, that if you make your vendors your partners by sharing with them real-time data, the financial outcomes will improve for both parties. And certainly your relationship is a relationship of partnerships, right?
Yeah.
Like in our business, asset utilization rates are very important because we are in a hospitality business. So we need to real-time manage who is moving out when, who is moving in when, right? How do I make that match within our systems to make sure that I don't have latency? I don't have a lag of 2 days, 5 days, 7 days, and hence my asset utilization goes down. The higher the asset utilization rates for me, the better my operating margins are, right? So, many examples that I have seen in my life that you can apply across the board. I mean, I used to work with GE at some point of time. They were the pioneers in some sense in applying this in their aircraft maintenance, in their healthcare device maintenances, right? Where they had this big, massive centers where there was a real-time data flowing into their systems so that the entire maintenance cycle can move from being preventive to proactive, right? And that obviously you know this better than anybody else. If you can control your operating costs, then for a service lines, your margins will significantly shoot up. And obviously good for the customers as well, right? So a couple of examples across industries that I have seen have worked extremely well.
Right. Thanks, Siddharth. I think these are very, very important, point that you made using the CRM tools and looking at those nuances, where which can actually give you a profitable growth, and especially making data available to the people who are using it. Is more like democratizing the data and really taking benefit, from that. Very, very good examples. Samba sir, what matrices should organizations use to measure the impact of financial analytics on their performance?
Yeah, in fact, it's a very difficult question. So I'll tell you how we have evolved the function of financial analytics. We have a function called FP&A, which when I came into the company, it was in 2013, we had a 2-member team. So the job was to basically do the forecasting, planning, analysis, reporting, and all those things, right? That was only a 2-member team. Now we have got 8 members or 9 members, I think. Now there are 9 members. So the role has actually evolved over a period of time. And what I have realized is that the level of understanding in the analytics which the finance function can deliver as a support for each and every, as a business partner for each and every other function is immense. Is immense. Meaning, for example, I have one guy who's working only with, say, customer operations and doing all sorts of analysis and looking at where all the possible savings are available, and look at, okay, look at the call center cost, look at the inbound call center, outbound call center, what is the kind of wastage which is happening. There is one person kind of dedicated, because it's a large cost for us, because it's one of the large cost elements for us. Somebody keeps on doing this kind of analysis, look at where there are opportunities. So we have now I understood that there is immense potential. The output, I can say, as a metric, one in the year 2023, I think we said that we will manage with the cost of 2021. So that was on the back of a lot of deep analytics which we did. So we said that we will reach the cost of 2021, but do the business in 2023. So that was, I remember there were some 70, 80 projects which were going on and looking at multiple areas and looking at data analytics and what are the opportunities. We had Six Sigma projects, we had a lot of things. Most of these were driven by the analytics team, so to say. So I don't have a metric to identify the efficacy of the function, but the fact that many of these people are directly contacted by MD itself is a testimony for me, because he has the contact number of, say, Sushen or Shreyansh or this thing. He says, "मैं ही बात कर लेता हूँ." मतलब, if you want something, right? He says, "Do I don't have to worry." So he directly contacts those 3-4 people. That itself, I think, is one metric, I would say. How many calls they are getting and how much demand is directly coming from the managing director to the analytics team shows that there is some merit in the team working, right? So that's the way I look at it. I don't have any specific metrics, so to say, for evaluating the performance. But the other thing you can see is that in terms of the rating of the rating curve, most of these guys are in the 4 and 5 rating, and many of these people are IIM graduates, many IIM and CAs and those kind of things. The crop itself we have developed like that. So we went to the top B schools and we got those kind of people, and so they are
Okay.
sitting there, which are potential leaders. So that's a supposedly a creme de la creme posting. analytics within Tata Play. So,
Right.
yeah.
Mili, coming to you, what are some common pitfalls organizations should avoid when implementing data-driven initiatives to improve operational efficiency?
So today, there are many tools or systems available in the market which helps you to, integrate to your ERP or various systems, and then they help you to give many reports and which helps you to analyze. But then, one has to look at, what kind of a system, what is that our organization needs based on the business requirements, what is the business or industry they are in. They need to accordingly, think of it. For like, let's say for us, we have an internal big data analytics team, and they use data warehouse and, various analytics tool to really combine data from various sources like our accounting system or accounting records. Financial records is obviously one, but they also take data from our Plantix partner platform on which we do sell our products, and then various other sources, the inventory related and all those things. One thing that I have noticed is the data authenticity. Sometimes what kind of data are you taking in? Yeah, that is quite important. Is it very clean data? Is it, authentic data? All that is also quite important. Then the tools and the logics that they're using to analyze that data is also quite important. And I can relate to this a lot more because I've just experienced it. So in our organization, we sell all the agri inputs on our Plantix partner platform, and we wanted to develop this dashboard where we could know profitability as we are selling the products. We come to know the profitability. Now my data analytics team does not know the logic. How do we calculate it? Can so I have to first explain them the whole logic. This is my revenue. You reduce the discounts if you have given. You have your cost of goods, and then that's it. So first I have to work with them on the logic that they need to follow on that, and then they have to use various data warehouse data, the analytics tools to integrate and then come out with the analysis. Now what happened was, whenever we my business team saw some margin on a product, they said, no, it cannot happen, this is not correct. So my data analytics team will say, I don't know, this data has come from the ERP or the financial records which Mili is managing, so there might be some challenges over there. So every time there was something in the data which the management or my business heads felt was not correct. It was like passing the parcel. Whose fault it is? It is the fault of the data analytics team that they have not built the correct logics or done it, or it is the data from where it is flowing. So I've experienced all that on that. That's it.
Yeah, I think Billy, you made some wonderful points on the right kind of data in terms of data authenticity, uh, the language of data, so that everybody truly speaks data-driven inferences and not their own views. Drill down and real time. I think drill down is a very, very important aspect of any kind of analysis that we do, because we have to move from diagnostic to predictive and prescriptive mode, and that can come only if you have the sufficient drill down. So this is like we used to say why analysis. So primarily something like this that works. That takes me to the next question, Siddharth. And when we talked about real time data, and I truly remember, even some about 50, 60, 70 years ago, 50, 60 years ago, there used to be something called a Padta system in Birla Group, right? And this is where daily profit and loss was being done and was being sent even through postcards to head office, so to say. And it was very fascinating that they were making some assumptions, but doing it on a daily basis. Daily P&L account was something that we were doing almost about 50, 60 years. But of course, there were a whole lot of assumptions that could go wrong, horribly go wrong. Today, with the kind of technology support that we have, this real time is truly something very, very important. So in your view, what are the benefits of real-time performance monitoring using advanced financial analytics?
Right. I mean, certainly I couldn't go back 50, 60 years in that conversation, Jogendra, but I think for me, the first thing is trust, right? I think real-time visibility to information, real-time visibility to financial performance builds a certain degree of trust. It not only brings trust on what you are, giving out as your financial performance, but it also gives trust in terms of your operational efficiency and most importantly, your governance standards. The faster you can get out with the results. And I think if you see the Indian stock market as well, or the NASDAQ as well, there is a certain expectation, companies like an HDFC or companies like Infosys or TCS, you expect them to come out with the results as quickly as possible, because that gives you that assurance, right? So the first and foremost is trust with stakeholders, investors, shareholders, and so forth. Second is transparency. And this is like, as Mili said, the musical chairs that happens within an organization all the time, right? If anything goes wrong, it's the finance team to be blamed. And invariably, you would have seen this within a BD team, a sales team, an operating team. When we used to produce results, 15 days, 30 days after a month end, right? This is not my number. My number is different, right? And finance will say, no, 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 this is my number, right? And then the whole conversation gets derailed from a company performance to now spending the next 1 week in trying to reconcile who is right and who is wrong. And by the way, there is no judge, because the judge, the lawyer is all the same person, and you're going to spend that time and you've forgotten about the company performance, right? So, when you start bringing that transparency across the organization on a real-time basis, at least now you have an opportunity to go back to that person. Were you sleeping for the 30 days?
Yeah.
If you had a problem with the data, you should have spoken out loud, clear about it. The next thing is about, minimizing surprises, right? And I am born and brought up in a certain corporate culture where surprises were never considered good, right? Good or bad, right? There is this big mentality that a lot of people across functions have, that I will surprise the management, I will surprise the leadership with good results, right? And I always tell them that I don't like surprises, good or bad. I don't like it. If you have told me 10, please give me 10. If you told me 100, please give me 100. That's all I'm interested in, right? I don't know if, going back to the era of subprime, Joginder, if at that point of time there was a real-time data, and if it was truly implemented, could a subprime have been avoided? Because the regulators, the banks, the central banks would have had so much of access to that information to say, wait a minute, something doesn't look right, and can we prevent this to happen, right? I'm hoping as things are moving, right, and RBI is getting more and more real-time access, as government is getting more real-time access, things are becoming much easier, right? I mean, we see that with our income tax returns. We see that with our GST returns, right? When all the systems are getting integrated, now doing your income tax returns, is much simpler as a process than what it used to be in the past. The next thing, Jogendra, is, slowly and gradually, you start learning to drive your car, not looking in the rear mirror, but looking in the front mirror.
Yeah.
Right? It is a cultural shift. It's a mindset shift. It takes time, right? Because the finance communities and a lot of communities within an organization are so used to doing I mean, they're not used to doing diagnosis, but an intersection of everything, and saying, let's slice and dice and figure out what happened. But by the time you finish the slice and dice, the next few months have passed by, right? And that used to be a continuous grudge with the finance community for the longest time, that, what am I going to do with all this? It's too late in the game, right? So I think decision making gets much better, right? Decision making tends to go from moving from a rear mirror to a front mirror. It tends to start getting more real time decisions, right? I'll give you one example. Jogendra, is during the time of global financial crisis, right? when things were changing so rapidly, right? The economic cycles were changing so rapidly. If you are in the business of money, right, you have to take real-time decisions, right? To understand what the implications of those real-time decisions, you need to have access to real-time data, right? So that you know that, okay, if I do this, right, this is what my financial cost is going to look like, right? This is how I can safeguard my assets, right? So you are jumping into the well, but you're jumping into the well with your eyes open, knowing very well what the financial implications of that is going to be, right? So I think that's very important. The last thing is, and I'll take a very different type of example. I'm hoping eventually this will become true, is that we will start focusing more on fair and ethical business practices, right? We have seen so much of instances in the past where, whether it was in the insurance sector, whether it was in the healthcare sector, whether it's in the financial services sector, where the fair and ethical practices are questionable, right? You know, like I was talking to somebody recently, a very different type of example, Jogendra, but it was about a tool to say, we will use AI, we will use machine learning, and we will essentially help you to reduce attrition in your organization. Yeah, sounds great, right? And I was very curious to know what's going to do, right? So obviously a part of it is we'll look at historical data, we'll do trend analysis, this, that, and then all of that, right? But when you start going from a cohort to an individual level, that means you're bringing in data from a lot of other platforms, whether
Right.
it's LinkedIn, whether it's a WhatsApp, whether it's whatever social media, and you're trying to use that data to predict somebody's next move, right? Now, as an employee, I can say, well, I'm very uncomfortable with this, right? How, who gave you the permission? Who gave you the right to actually skim so much of my data, my personal information, and make assumptions based upon that,
Yeah.
right? Now, therefore, the finance professionals will have to learn on a real time, how do you embed these fair, ethical business practices in what you are doing,
Yeah,
right?
I think you went far beyond, and even talking about, the profiling or getting into the private, data space from my number versus your number to real-time numbers, and absolutely very fascinating, stories on that. Coming back to you, Samba, I just take a different, turn on this, and I talk about operational efficiency. So how do you think advanced analytics can help organization enhance their operational efficiency?
Yeah. So there are two, three data points I'll give you. When I joined the company, say 2013, we used to have the month-end closure, say around first week or fifth or sixth, and then we used to get the MIS around 10th or 11th or something like that. Sometimes it could even go up to 15th.
Mhm.
Consistently for the last, I think, 5 years now, we are delivering the board MIS with the full analysis and the full insights and narrative on the first day of the month, not first working day, but the first day of the month since November 2019. Okay, that is one. Number two, our audits used to happen in the month of June because now we are able to have some good control over data and story and everything. For the last, I think 3 years, I think 3 or 4, I think. So before 10th, we are closing with the big four auditor. Before 10th, we are able to have the board meeting. 10th of April, I'm just saying. So this is, I think, then what happens, no? If you finish the MIS by the first, then all the 30 days, remaining 29 days, you have got enough work to do, no, for future. The
Yeah.
results are out on the first day of the month, and then nothing more to be done, right? Then you have to say, okay, what next, right? So to continue with what Mili said, we have this philosophy of very nicely saying that what, why, how. And I also ask one more question: if whatever data you are presenting should also say so what.
Ah,
So what
yes.
means what is the action coming out of it? That's,
Yeah.
I think, was inbuilt in what Mili's statement was. So we say what, yes, why, then how, then so what? See, is it just for general knowledge purposes? Then I'm not interested. There should be a so what question asked. There should be some action orientation. Just for my knowledge, I'm not looking at your information just for improving my general knowledge. So if there is an action orientation, it has to be an action oriented, what you can say, insight, so to say. That is one thing which we are looking at, and it has actually helped. As I said, no, we talked about reducing the cost, and we are managing with the 2-year prior cost and all those things. So data analytics helps in a very big way for all our functions. We got supply chain, we got in fact strategy is also part of my team. So when we look at any M&A opportunity, when we look at any kind of decision to be taken, when you look at any large projects to be driven, like AI projects or something like that, all these things are the data analysis is done by the FP&A team, like return on capital employed. We have a payback for every pack, because you in DTH industry, you are having a 300 rupee pack, or you are having a 400 rupee pack. You are having a, for each pack we have got a return on capital employed. What's the kind of ROC which each pack? So pack wise ROC is something which again this team only does it for every pack. So it's the entire spectrum is being done by FP&A team, that is the planning and analysis team. And I think they have been able to be a catalyst for across the organization. And in fact, even within the group also, we got some good scores on data maturity assessment and things like that. So we are in the top quartile, so to say, within the Tata group. So all this thanks to the data analytics, data collation, say like from starting with collation, starting with the, see, very important to have data integrity. Without data integrity, data analysis of no use. So
Absolutely.
we did a lot of work around data integrity, single version of truth and all those things. The
Yes.
monthly update, what I talked about, which goes to the MD, the entire data is presented from one computer, which is the FP&A team, for all the organization. So even the technology data is presented from the computer of the FP&A person. So it's a single version of truth. So everything is sitting in one place. So life becomes easier that way, right? So that's, yeah.
Yeah, I think, this is exactly what, Siddharth also talked about, my version versus your version.
Yeah, that is all not there. All gone away. Some 5-6 years back, we had
Cannot
killed the
be there.
problem actually.
Cannot
It is
be
not
there.
a, yeah.
Version of truth. Yes, absolutely. Also, I remember when I was with, working with Daimler, at that point in time, we started a project, Fast Close. And Fast Close was, we were closing on the 6th or 7th day. And worldwide, we started, since we were a new company, we started in India and Bharat Benz. We said we are already closing on day 3. So, and they wanted to actually do a project for day 3 close. So we said, we are already there. We don't have to do anything. But then we said, okay, why don't we use this opportunity and this budget, that we have got to put the technology and try and do it on day 1. So absolutely, I understand this is very important.
Now this year, my project is to finish it by 5 p.m. Now I am sending the report. My this thing goes to the chairman of the board, say around 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock in the night, with lot of heartburn and a lot of meetings and other things. I want to make it to 5 p.m. So every time the first date is a very what do you say, risky one. It is not very smooth sailing. Day 1 is close, is done with lot of effort by a lot of people. But I want to do it more smooth sailing, which is still there. That's the project for this year, to smooth sailing at 5 p.m. I want to send this thing by 5 o'clock, not at 10 o'clock in the night. That's
So
what the aim is now.
yes, so it's not fast close, it's instant close now.
Instant close with a kind of what, see, it's just not the numbers, no. The narrative is what takes time.
Narrative
See,
and
the
storyline.
numbers come at morning 9 o'clock, but for me to write the narrative, it takes so much time. That's where the problem is. Yeah.
That's very right. I think, but
Yeah.
now with the technology and with, planning, this should be possible.
Yeah.
So
Narrative
not
only
very,
takes a lot of time for me, actually.
yes.
Otherwise, it's a question of storytelling. No, as I said, that's the other related point. We have 4 pillars for our, which I talked to you yesterday. We had 4 pillars in finance strategy, which is remaining unchanged for the last 5 years. One pillar is business partnering. Second pillar is technology. Third pillar is data analytics. Fourth pillar is storytelling. So
Yes.
these are the 4 pillars on which the entire finance functions. Every individual is to be on top of all these 4 things.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's
So this is a standard statement which is not changed for the last 5 years for me. So
Okay, good. Mili, I come back to you. How can predictive analytics be used to improve risk management and forecasting within the organization? And these are two very, very important aspects, forecasting and risk management. So how do you use predictive analytics for this?
Yeah. So, earlier, a few years back, forecasting was something that only finance used to do. I remember, earlier I was a bit technical. It's just finance, and while there is a team working on closing, there's also a team on the business finance, which is then struggling to publish the new forecast on a month-on-month basis, and used to be a completely finance-driven thing. But now, as I have seen in my organization, we are also using our data analytics teams to help us to do some kinds of predictive analysis to help us on the forecasting. And how this works is like we in the finance would have a higher KPIs. Okay, like this is the turnover or revenue that we need to achieve on a month-on-month basis or for the year. And this is the margin that we are expecting, and this is the cost that we should be incurring. But then that's not enough for us to execute on month basis. And that's where the predictive analysis or my data analytics teams comes into the picture. I may have on a high level that okay, for the next month this is the turnover or the revenue I need to achieve. But for me to get into details, what is that I'm going to sell in that month? That's where my data analytics team starts, because I'm talking about thousands of projects that we need to have in stock, buy and sell in a month. So that's where they analyze all that past year's data. They then come and tell us, okay, these are the SKUs or these are the products that you should be selling this month, or which will go which can be sold this month. And that's how we get into an execution level of plan.
Yeah. So, Siddharth, if I just extend this question to you also, what are the best practices for implementing predictive analytics in financial risk management, especially?
Yeah, I think a couple of things, Jogendra. One, don't fall into the trap of garbage in, garbage out. That's the first thing I will always tell people, that if you don't have the underlying quality and the infrastructure for data, don't embark upon a project like this. Kind of stay away from it. Second, don't try to build a cottage industry. Sometimes we do get a lot carried away by saying that, look, if I'm going to do this, then I can get this, and I can get this, and I can get this. And before you know, you kind of created a cottage industry out of this, right? Third is, you got to dedicate capital and resources to it. Don't make it like one of 100 things that a person has to do, as a result of which the quality is going to significantly deteriorate of what you are trying to achieve, right? A lot of times we take a lot of pride when we go live with an implementation, right? It is not the end of the journey. That's where the journey starts, right? Because once you've implemented something, invariably, something or the other is going to go wrong. It will go wrong. You got to be better prepared for it, and focus on getting it solved, right? I personally have learned a lesson in my life that once something goes live, you should not, for at least for the next 12 months, take your leadership oversight and focus away from that project. I have done projects where I've been successful by doing this, but I've also been unsuccessful because I took my eye off the ball, and before I realized, the project wasn't there, right? So you got to do that in making sure that you have a continuous monitoring and focus on the project. Training is very critical, Jogendra. We don't spend enough time, enough resources in training people in managing the change within the organization. And a lot of times, people are expecting instant results, right? So the day you go live, you expect the productivity will go up by 20%. It's actually the other way around. The day you go live, your productivity is going to go down. And you should be comfortable to say that, look, for the next couple of months, as people embrace the new system, the new way of working, we are okay to let productivity go down, because I believe the productivity will eventually go up, right? So one has to have that patience to make sure that it is happening. The other piece is continuous improvement and feedback loop. I have seen so many times, Jogendra, in my own career as well. We implemented a project, we did something, we kind of stayed with it, and we forgot about it, right? But as the business environment keeps changing, as the business outcomes keep changing, you got to have a continuous improvement and feedback loop that is feeding it back, right? And if that isn't happening, very soon it's going to go down, right? One metric that I learned that you got to really, really focus on reporting, measuring, monitoring is adoption rate, right? If the adoption rate is not happening, right, you know that in 3 months' time, 5 different functions in the organization will stand up and say, this does not work for me. I don't want this, right? I don't get the information that I'm looking for or the way I'm looking for, right? It starts happening, right? So then you have wasted so much of organizational bandwidth, resources, etc., just because the adoption did not take place, right? So I always tell leaders and I tell my teams also that please focus on adoption. And for having adoption, buy-in at a very early stage is very important. Buy-in not just from your team, but from the functional teams, buy-in from regulators, buy-in from the statutory auditors, internal auditors, to make sure they all will embark upon this journey. They will use these systems, they will use this data to get to where they need to get to, right? And as the world is now getting more complex, right, it is even more important that we get this right? If it is not done right, and I keep saying, if it is not done right, then it will become a nightmare for you. And the finance guys are the ones who have to hold that pain for the longest time.
Right, right. So good, wonderful interaction. One final question, and I want, in view of the time, only one liner, even though I know Siddharth wants to do a little more on that. But so as we move towards a future, which is increasingly driven by data and analytics, we say in God we trust, everybody else has to come with data, right? So what do you believe is the single most important skill or mindset that finance professionals should develop to effectively leverage advanced financial analytics in their roles? So let's start with Sambasivan.
Yeah. So one is they need to understand the latest technologies, right? They need to look at, for example, we are using Power BI. We are using, for example, Tableau dashboards. We are using Alteryx. We are using EasyML. There are many tools which we are currently using, and there are some AIML tools also people are using. So, and I have got team players who are writing codes in Python and all. They can write code in Python. They can go to Power BI. They can take whatever data you want. We don't go to IT, first of all. We are self-sufficient, mostly, I would say. 70-80% of the requirements are all ad hoc requirements. Any big projects only we go to IT. Otherwise, it's very important to develop a self-sufficiency in terms of analyzing data. So whatever tools are there, you need to keep learning, and there are new tools coming every day. So that learning is paramount, particularly around AI. With all this AI, you have so many of them. We don't know where to stop.
Absolutely. Siddharth?
Yeah, I think apart from what said, I think for me it is very important that the finance fraternity and I'm talking to the finance fraternity right now, is that look, you will now have to expand your horizon. You will not have to just focus on financial laws, but you got to get into regulatory laws. You got to get into data privacy. You got to get into competition laws. All of that, because the way the business is going to happen, the way data is going to flow through the entire life cycle of a customer, it is not anymore about looking at the outcome. You will have to ensure ethical and fair trade practices. And the most important and challenging thing that I see, Jogendra, which I think the finance fraternity is going to struggle with in few years' time from now, when the regulators are going to get active with this entire area, right? They will expect you to tell them how the system, how the code made the decision. Can you tell me how the decision was made? Can you unwind that for me? And it's going to be hard, right? And if you're looking at generative AI, which is going to keep learning by itself, then it's even more tough, because how will you explain a statutory auditor? How will you explain a regulator as to what to do? So I think it's a great opportunity for the finance guys to learn some new skills and to expand their horizon, to be at the epicenter of a business.
Yeah, good. Siddharth, and last word to you, Mili.
So, according to me, it's a cultural change for finance leaders, because earlier, managing the financial data analysis was only a finance bastion, or they were the custodian. But now we see the emergence of a data analytics teams in the organizations as we have, and then finance has to work in hand with them. It's no more just finance who's analyzing the data, but they need to start, collaborating and, working with the data analytics teams. I think it's a huge mindset or cultural change for all finance professionals, and we need to align with it. We need to understand there are certain limitations we have as finance, and that's where we should rely on our data analytics team on that. So, yeah.
Good. Thank you, panelists, for your valuable insights. Today's discussion highlighted the transformative power of advanced financial analytics in driving strategic decisions, enhancing operational efficiency, and managing risks. So as we move forward, let us embrace these tools and techniques to not only keep pace with the changing landscape, but to lead with innovation and foresight. Thank you all. Thanks.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.